here we are today in 2014 in this hall that's called the Hub. Well, back in 1966, 67, this was known as the Red Cross Hall, and it was one of the locations where the likes of us as youngsters could hire out at a fairly reasonable rate to have to play or to have as an outlet for the music that we liked, rather than going to the ballrooms like the Jetland and Stella and whatever. So we'd get halls like this, and we'd bang out the type of music that we liked, and we'd had people that liked that type of music would follow here into this hall. And at that time you had a few renegades, as we'd have been called in the day, or laggards or whatever, because we had long hair and we were different from the set mould. So we'd listen in to the likes of Radio Caroline and Luxembourg 208, and get off our songs that we liked. We'd get together, practice, blah blah, and we'd head down to places like this and start off with stuff like You Really Got Me, or It's All Over Now by the Rolling Stones, or something like that, just to do what we wanted to do, to be different. And that's basically where we started out back in the early 60s. We wanted to be different from the ordinary run-of-the-mill, and doing stuff that we thought was different and a change, and both musically and fashion. We wanted to do something different. We just didn't want to be run-of-the-mill.
You really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing now. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I passed it that night. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing now. Oh yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I passed it that night. You really got that. You really got that. You really got that.
Well, there wasn't just the Go-Go, there were two clubs in Limerick. There was the Cavalier and there was the Go-Go. And the Cavalier was in the Mechanics Institute, which is up in Hartstone Street. And the DJ in the Cavalier was a guy called Danny Hughes. And where the church became involved in it was it one night he said Sexy? Was that it?
It was a number by the Trogs, Wild Thing.
Wild Thing, yeah.
And he, when it came to a certain the part of the song, he turned down the song and he took over and said, I think you're sexy.
Wild Thing, I think you're sexy.
Yeah, Wild Thing, I think you're sexy. And that started.
But news of that leaked out,
yeah.
And the confraternity latched onto it and decided that they couldn't have this filth. Or have the youth of Limerick exposed to this filth.
Yeah.
So what they did was they actually got the Cavalier shut down. But surprisingly enough, what they did was they took the lease and then opened their own club on the same premises with practically the same music about 2 weeks later.
But not sexy.
But not sexy, definitely not sexy. Yeah.
Same price as the door though.
Different DJ. But then they applied pressure on the Go-Go as well, and I think eventually the Go-Go had to cave in, because the Go-Go was, the Cavalier had a reputation of being a nice club, whereas the Go-Go was a bit darker, both in just the lighting and the atmosphere as well.
the other today. You must embrace what is special about you.
So we got this, and I got this, you know, the Communist Manifesto. Do you remember that? All the kids are reading the Communist Manifesto. Society on the Run. Edward de Bono, and of course he was teaching us all how to think back in the day, you know, how to think. But my personal favourite, that has nothing at all to do with thinking, is this little beauty here. T. Lobsang Rampa, who was either, depending on how you look at it, a Tibetan monk, or else a plumber from Sheffield. Bit of both, I think. He wrote a series of these books, all about sort of Eastern mysticism and all this kind of stuff. And I came across this little one here. I don't know where it came from because I didn't buy it, but the thing that amazed me about it was flicking through it here. I noticed a little bookmark in it. Voila, Exhibit A. A London Transport bus ticket from, hard to make it out, but sometime 1970 something. Amazing stuff. Proves that some cultural refugee from Limerick returned with spoils of war, spoils of the war of peace, that is, of course, and love, you know? And he brought this back. But of course, you know, you need to make it absolutely clear. You didn't have to go to London to get this stuff. I mean, you could go down to O'Mahony's bookshop in Limerick and you could buy all this, because this kind of thing was everywhere. This, Carlos Castaneda, all that kind of stuff. I think everyone, lads will agree, just an incredibly oppressive atmosphere. Even that, you know, you had your band and you were working against this kind of oppressive atmosphere, this church-driven, like fighting a marshmallow, isn't it? I mean, no matter where you go, here you're running into this muck, everything you punch at you gets stuck in. Priests everywhere trying to dictate what you think, what you do. Like what you're saying, your DJ couldn't even say sexy, but the next thing you know, you've got a battalion of whoever these guys were from Mount St. whatever, Alphonsus down to close the place. And I mean,
it wasn't just the church though. I mean,
it was the whole
headlines
society.
on the Limerick Leader.
Yeah, it was the whole society. It was absolutely, and I mean, I often thought, you know, if you look at the confraternity, I mean, it's modelled on the whole Roman Legion thing, and it's exactly like you might see in miniature at a Nuremberg rally or something like that. It's exactly, isn't it?
Exactly.
The very same with the standards and the whole lot, and you've got all these little characters, and they've been given a bit of power, and they're not going to relinquish power. And I don't know what they were called, because I'll be honest with you, I mean, fair play to my parents, I was never inside the door of the place.
There were prefects and sub-prefects.
So that's Roman. That's prefects and sub-prefects and all the rest of it. So, and all of this kind of power trickled down through society. You had a little bit of status, a little bit of standing, if you were known as as a leader of this, whatever it was, group of men. It was always men, of course, wasn't it?
Yeah.
1968, for context, was the year that Bobby Kennedy was shot. It was the year of the Prague Spring. It was the year of the Paris student riots. It was the year the Warsaw Pact forces invaded Czechoslovakia and crushed Dubček's vision. It was the year that Apple Records were founded. Meanwhile, back here in Ireland, Archbishop John Charles McQuaid brooded in his palace about matters of which he had no direct personal experience, in theory at least. In 1968, Kubrick released 2001: A Space Odyssey. They shot Martin Luther King. Dave Gilmour joined Pink Floyd. Led Zeppelin played their first live gig. The Beatles released the Double White album. And Nixon won the US presidential election. Is this what we were obsessing about in the news in Ireland? It was not. The principal subject in the news in Ireland in 1968 was the papal encyclical on birth control. Cutting edge stuff. Within 2 years, the Beatles would release their final album, Let It Be. The Who would play live at Leeds, My Generation. Black Sabbath would release their first 2 albums. And here in Ireland, little Dana Rosemary Brown would be playing a sugary little ditty called All Kinds of Everything. Is it any wonder that some people wanted to escape from a monochrome cultural Albania that Ireland had become? Barely 1 year after the film of the Ulysses novel was banned in Ireland. And even though there were straws in the wind and green shoots, and even though the Censorship of Publications Act had been modified, thereby unbanning 1,200 novels at one stroke, thanks to, of all people, Brian and Senior, we had a long way to go. Men like our fathers, well-read men, perhaps without much formal education, but well-read and educated nonetheless, were reduced to reading an endless diet of Zane Grey and Louis L'Amour westerns, and our mothers read an undemanding diet of romantic historical novels, because it had been ordained by those who wished to render this country infantile, that people would not be presented with the means of thinking critically, or at least, to be more specific, the working class would not be presented with those means, because the well-off could always access these things, just as they could access the forbidden contraception. Let me just offer you a list of the people who were banned up to 1967 in this country. Edna O'Brien, Proust, Nabokov, Huxley, right? They banned Zola, Steinbeck, Faulkner, Hemingway, Thomas Mann, Graham Greene, Andre Malraux, H.G. Wells and Dylan Thomas. They banned Somerset Maugham. They banned Limerick writer Kate O'Brien. They banned George Bernard Shaw. They banned Beckett. In fact, somebody once described the list of banned books in Ireland as the Everyman's Guide to Modern Classics. But things were changing. And at this point we turn to the likes of Cha Haran, an unlikely Prometheus, who stole not fire from the gods, but colour, and brought it back to Limerick.
There's a Franciscan Hall in Dublin as well. I'm in there rehearsing with Philo, Gary Moore, Noel Richmond. This red-headed, curly-haired guy arrives, and Philo says to me, he's a communist. And he had a copy of the Morning Star paper in his pocket, and he had a gabardine on. And he had more hair than Jimi Hendrix. He said, did you ever hear this song? He sang this. His name was Luke Kelly. He was the first communist I ever met. If I start singing this, is somebody going to help me out? Because I didn't come all this way to sing on my own. When I come to Limerick, I come to have a good time. Is everybody over it? Oh, at my violin, and I dreamed by the old canal, and I kissed my girl by the factory wall. But the dirty old town, dirty old town.
I think that the clubs would have been considerable threat to the morals of the children. And our children could be corrupted to this music and by the atmosphere in the clubs. In the club where you couldn't do that out in the Jetland, or you couldn't do that out in Drumcane. You could do it outside Drumcane, all right, but not in Drumcane.
And I mean, here in Ireland, you had this culture of that, of condemnation. I mean, I read somewhere that whoever one of the leaders of the War of Independence, I'm not sure who it was, Costello, I think, said that we must be the most conservative revolutionaries in history. But of course, what you ended up with was a society where you had a very, very privileged elite who were the leaders of that so-called revolution. And they all prospered, and all their sons and grandsons became High Court judges and became prominent surgeons and one thing and another. And all the foot soldiers ended up falling victim to the government's two greatest friends, which were emigration and TB. And in order to keep those people down, in order to keep a lid on rational, critical thinking, it was necessary to induce a regime of censorship.
I've never written to a newspaper before and didn't think that anything would ever move me to write. I regret that it should be annoyance and not satisfaction that motivates me. Last week's television programme, 20 Minutes with Grannies Intentions, was disgraceful. It should never have been transmitted on a national network. I am partial, as the next, I'm only 20, to pop music. But I would never emphasize the word music, which is, I presume, what Grannies Intentions thought they were making in this programme. In last week's programme, I could hear neither words or music. The song took second place to the gyrations of the lead singer in the intrusive, eccentric lighting of the set. Mind you, I am prepared to believe that the lighting man, or director, realised that Grannies Intentions were so bad they couldn't carry on the programme without gimmicks. What a pity. RT Guide, 23rd of August, 1968.